Wonderful. Hi, welcome everyone. We're just going to wait a few seconds while we get some more people into the waiting room. But welcome, welcome, welcome. If you'd like, feel free to pop into the chat and let us know where you are zooming in from today. That's always fun. So I will say I am in Los Angeles, and our guest will be zooming in from Israel. Boston, excellent. Houston, Texas. All right, y'all. Gloucester, Mass. Manhattan was just there. Nice and toasty in Manhattan, although it may have cooled off. Santa Fe, Toronto, Amsterdam. Wow, all over the world. Tel Aviv, it's going real fast. Ranana. Hi from Boston, Peoria, Illinois, Munich, London. Incredible. Florham Park, New Jersey. Been there. Ramat Gan. Cologne. Bonjour, bonjour. Excellent, wonderful. Well, it is 10:03 a.m. where I am right now. So I think I should start with a little introduction. All right, everyone. All right, let me just make sure I can see everything properly. Hello, hello. I am Jamie Denbo. Please join me in this amazing book club. Welcome to Book Club by the Israeli Institute for Hebrew Literature. It's a series of conversations with Israeli and Jewish authors. I myself am a comedian and a book lover. I'm also a podcaster, or rather my alter ego is the host of the Beverly podcast, available wherever you get your podcast. Shameless plug over. To see only our writer, our author for today, and myself, please go to the view button at the top right and make sure to hide non-video participants. You can check that box. Thank you for continuing to put where you're from. It's always interesting for us to know where everybody is zooming in from. Little bit of information about the Israeli Institute for Hebrew Literature. The Institute helps Israeli authors reach readers around the world through their Hebrew Literature Translation Fund, which supports foreign publishers in translating and publishing Hebrew books all over the world. At the end of our hour, we will be sharing a QR code with more information and donation options. I would also like to highlight this gorgeous place where I'm sitting right now. This is Der Nister. It is hosting us again at Hollander Books. This is a beautiful Jewish bookstore in downtown Los Angeles. Der Nister is a synagogue and a cultural center and a home for art, literature, and music from the broad range of Jewish civilization. Toward the end of our session, we are going to have time for some of the questions that the audience has asked in advance. We got so many questions for this extremely popular author. We will not be able to get to all of them, but we will get to him right now. Please allow me to introduce our guest author. From his breakout in the 90s as the unmistakable voice of a new Israeli generation to his place today as one of the world's most widely read contemporary storytellers, Etgar Keret has continually redefined the boundaries of fiction, intimacy, and imagination. Etgar, welcome.
Hi.
Hi. Now, before we get to your latest book, okay, you are currently in Israel. You'll soon be doing something in New York you have done before. Will you please tell us a little bit about this position that you'll be taking in New York, or that you've taken and that you're taking again in New York?
Yes, I was lucky to launch an MFA in creative writing in the Jewish Theological Seminar, and it's really like we've had our first year, and now we're beginning our second year, and it's a very, very special and exciting program. We have people like Rachel Kadish and Shalom Ostrander, staff, and in our events we had Jonathan Safran Freud and Alex Edelman, Jody Cantor, and the whole idea of this program is to equip our students with the storytelling abilities that you need these days, because in these days you really should know how to tell your story and the story of what's happening around you, because if you subscribe to the stories that you can find online, then you're going to get lost real fast.
So we can call you Professor Keret.
Yeah.
Very good. Excellent. Let's get into your latest book, Autocorrect. Autocorrect, for those of you who haven't read it, and for those of you who have, to remind you, it explores the fragility of humanity in an increasingly virtual, algorithmic, hyper-technological world, a world that feels like it is definitely here right now. Okay. Many of these stories can read a little to a bit like cautionary tales. So, my question is, was that the intention, to warn us all about the level of technology that we are getting to?
I think usually when begin to write a story, I really don't know what I want to say, because if I would have known what I want to say, I would have just said it. So it's mostly kind of navigating and finding something in a territory that interests you. And I think that what interests me the most is the relationship between us, human beings, and technology. Because I actually studied math and learned a lot about AI. So,
Wow.
so I'm not a technophobe, and I like technology, but I don't like the way that we use technology. I think, for example, if you look at our, I don't know, rocket plans for the space, then let's say man had walked on the moon, how long? Like 50 years ago,
Yeah.
and then what happened was that a few years ago they invented a business model that they can send billionaires to outer space. They can take a selfie with themselves and fall back. And now they sent another spaceship to the moon. So basically, in those 50 years, couldn't we advance a little bit? We could, but there was no business model for that. And the idea is that we live in this kind of a mega capitalistic environment where we're not advancing to a better place, but we're advancing to a place where there's a business plan. I think it's horrible, and I feel that humanity needs to kind of figure a way of how not to abuse technology. I think that if you look at the story of humanity and food, through all generation, people were hungry, they had to fight to get food, and then they came to the US and became obese. So what happened was that at some stage, this food didn't serve them anymore. It became a problem. And I
Mm.
feel that that's the same thing that happens with technology. I can give you a silly example, or an old man
Yeah.
example. You see, I have white eyebrows. So I write,
So do I.
uh, you have blonde eyebrows because you're from
Hmm.
from LA.
Yeah, this is very natural. Please continue.
So I'm saying I do a lot of WhatsApping. I think in the US it's a little bit less popular, but I
Yes.
do a lot of WhatsApping because people ask me all kinds of questions. So my son felt sorry for me seeing me going like this with my chubby fingers. And he said, Dad, I'll show you a trick. If you kind of push for a very long time, you can put an emoji as a reply. Okay, so he kind of lined up three emojis for me. One of them was a red heart. There was also a heart made with fingers, but I said, how did those fingers got into my phone? So red heart means I love you. Fingers mean I say I love you. So I went for the red heart. Those two hands that say thank you, namaste, and the thumb
Yep.
up. Now, since he put this on my phone, he taught me this technique, then 90% of my messages, I just answer with those three emojis. You know, if you text me tomorrow and you say the event yesterday was wonderful, I say thank you. And if you say, let's do it another time, and I give you the thumb up. And if you say, but listen, Edgar, next time, let me talk a little. You really take over everything. You're a nice guy, but please be sensitive. I'll send you a heart because I can't give you a thumb up and I can't say thank you. So basically, anything I can't use those, I send the heart. So I'm saying that through technology, I was able to pass a quick process of de-evolution, where from being a writer who knows how to express himself with words, I became a user who only uses free signs to communicate. So I pay the
Well,
price for this optimization. I have more time, but I became somebody who's totally unable
well,
to express
you've
himself.
you've sort of answered my next question. because this really, I was going to say, is it a chicken or the egg? Do you feel that technology changes human nature? You've just given us an example of how it kind of does, or does it just amplify aspects of ourselves that were already there?
So I think that in the end, it's all about us. The same way that dynamite was invented for mining and people blow up each other. So in the end, it's all about us.
Ah,
When I was a kid in the 70s, me and my brother, we used to play a game. We called it a restaurant in the future. And in
hmm.
this game, I came to dine, and my brother was a robot in the restaurant of the future. And he would cut me, the cucumber in robotic movement and bring this plate to and wash it in his robotic movement. And this is how we thought the future would look like. But now, when I go to McDonald's, all the people who work are human, and only the boss, this kind of screen where I say, no lettuce, I don't want lettuce, and it ignores me. So basically, what happened? In the past, we thought that robots, it comes from the word robota, it's work.
Wow.
They were supposed to do the hard work. But we said, you know what, we'll do the hard work. You just decide for us. For example, when you go on Facebook, you do the hard work and you write something very delicate about your granddaughter and the first day she swam, and you do it and you think of every detail except for who's going to read it. You say, hey, Facebook, mail it to who? And the Facebook says, all the pedophiles in your neighborhood, don't worry. But I forgot your daughter. So what's the idea about that? What is this idea of kind of outsourcing everything that means something? Like, let's say if I would say to you, let's go to see a movie, you would ask me, what movie? But when you go on your Instagram, and this cat is on the raft is going like this, you never asked for this cat. It was just dumped on you. So basically, what I think is that when we met technology said, what would you want most that will help you with? And we said, please decide for us. Please let us be
Ugh.
passive and we'll do all the rest.
Okay, well, that's uh, leads me to ask you, if algorithms and search bars are finishing our sentences and we get ads for things that it knows that we like. I go on Instagram and it knows what shoes I want. It's weird, right? Is that scary in term how do you maintain your own originality? How do you as a author and a user of words maintain your originality?
So first of all, I want to say is that this is something very very tricky because technology can do things that we can't, and we can do things that technology can't. So basically, it's not that one of us has the upper end. It's just that we can do things differently. Now, I'm saying that what we convinced ourselves that the thing that is most important for us is optimization. We want to pay the cheapest price, get the quickest service, and get from one place to
Right.
another quickly. So, for example, you and me, we are in Tel Aviv in the same place, and we need to get somewhere else, okay? And I drive a car and just using my senses, and you use Waze or navigation or Google Maps, okay? So here's the idea. I'm going to get there 10 minutes later. In those 10 minutes, I'm going to take a wrong left. I'm going to see a weird cat on a tree. And I'm going to speak to somebody with a very funny accent. You're going to get there 10 minutes early and then see in your Instagram a cat and somebody speaking in a funny accent. But I'm owning the cat. I took a wrong left to get my cat. You just got your cat from some algorithm. So I'm saying that not only I think that it's worth. I think that it makes us lose our identity,
Yep.
lose our story.
So you are making active decisions
Yes.
to choose maybe some optimization, but it's certainly not convenience. I think there's a difference between optimization and convenience, probably, hopefully. Maybe there should be.
So what I want to say is that for me, the problem with optimization that I never saw it as a value. I'm saying, let's say would I want to make double the money that I make? I probably would. What would I do with that money? I have to think about it. Would I want to work double for that double wage? No way. I don't have a lot of time. So the thing is that what I feel is that it's not that we make the wrong decisions. It's we already gave up on making the decision. For example, if I say to you, you know, Jamie, I'm looking through the Zoom and it's a nice space and I want to come to your home one day and kind of rearrange. I'm going to throw a few things, but going to put really nice ones. Then you would say, I'm not letting you into my home. And if I do, tell me what you want to throw and what you want to put. But every time you do an iPhone update, do you say, oh, and I like the green screen and please don't change it? No, just say, I'm covering my eyes, do whatever you want. And the idea is that we're very, very quickly being indoctrinated to a world where we don't have to make decisions. And I really feel that, it's as if like technology, it's pushing us all the time, not out of meanness, to the kind of to the court or to
Yes.
the word that it understands and it knows, and it makes us into some kind of a algorithm. Think about, let's say, the term of canceling somebody. You can't cancel a human being. You can cancel a program. So it means that you treat a man as a program. So I think everything in those processes are basically making us feel that we live the same life, but the environment has changed. I think the example is, let's say, if I was a dog, and if I was your dog, and you won the lottery and bought a yacht, then I would usually go in the yard and bark on cats, but now I'm on a yacht, so I bark on fish. And I decide which fish I bark on, but I never decided to be on the yacht. And the same thing happens when each of us opens our eyes and we're going, I don't know, on CNN or turning on the TV. And in a second, our life is kidnapped. Instead of thinking of our grandchildren, we're thinking about a war in a place that we didn't even know that existed.
So it's about intention. And I'm getting the message from you. And I think it's important to just reiterate that for your original stories and for your original point of view, I don't know if are you familiar probably with David Sedaris?
Of course.
Right. He's
I love his writing. I love his writing.
In many ways, I feel as a fan of yours and a fan of his that I see a tremendous amount of similarity in the length of your works and the short storytelling. And he was recently asked, do weird things just happen to him? Or does he just experience an inordinate amount of strange things, or is he just keeping his eyes open? And what he said was he's generally just keeping his eyes open, and a lot of people are staring down at their phones. And I wondered if that resonated with you. It sounds to me like a similar way of thinking, that you are making choices to engage with the world.
So it's fun because I can't drive, so in Israel I use taxis all the time. And basically, I have this history of getting very, very friendly and intimate with taxi driver when I would always offer them to use my toilet, saying, there's no restroom in your car if you want and stuff. And basically, like, I became a legend among taxi driver. If I would run for senator, I would get all the taxi driver votes. And then when I got married, my wife told me that the way that I treat taxi driver is not standard. And since then, I try to be kind of a more dignified person, and I don't talk to taxi drivers, and I don't ask them how many children they have or why do their hair look funny and stuff like that. And what happens is that they kept talking to me. I wouldn't say a thing. I would just sit in the car, and then the driver would say, my wife is in hospital, or he would say, my daughter doesn't speak to me. And there was this guy that I went with him, and he had a problem with his daughter that became religious and he didn't know what to do. And my sister is religious, and I helped him. And in the end, he said to me, you really helped me. I want to help you in something in return. So I didn't. So I said, I want to help you with something. So I said to him, tell me something. How come when I get on a car, you start talking to me like this? And like, I mean, what did I tell you something? Did I smile? What is it about me that all the taxi drivers in the world speak to me? And I said, do I project empathy? And he goes, nah, you're not on your phone. And
Yeah.
that's exactly that, because today when somebody gets on a bus or gets on a cab, they don't share space with other people. They don't look at them. They don't think about them. So in that sense, it's not a question of like doing something well. The question is if you're doing it at all.
Okay. That is just incredibly specific and really interesting to think about. So if autocorrect, the stories in there really reflect some of the hopes, but a lot of the anxieties of this current moment, what gives you reason for optimism? What when you look toward the future as a writer and as a reader and as a person, is there anything that really surprises you in a good way?
A lot of things surprised me in a good way. We live in a period where I think 100 years ago or 50 years ago, I would probably be dead by now. It's really like I would have a heart attack or
Me too.
something, and so I'm saying our lifespan is getting longer. We know more about the world and the universe. Issues that that always troubled the world, let's say like world hunger, are we can deal with them so much better than we used to. So I really think that on the pragmatic realistic side we're doing kind of good. I'm saying on the mental side not at all. I want to tell I had an event in Boston, and there was.
That's where I'm from there. It's no big deal. I just want to mention that.
Yeah.
Continue.
So it was a very long time ago. I bet they would probably arrest me if this would have happened this day. But I had it in Boston, in Harvard, and one of the students, a young girl, an undergraduate, she said to me, "I'm an activist and I won't stop fighting until the shopping mall next to my home will become a." Wow, Jamie, you scare me. So she said, I won't stop fighting and being an activist until the shopping mall next to my home would become a safe space for me and my girlfriend so we can kiss in the shopping mall and nobody would give us bad looks. And I said to her, like, as an old guy, I want to tell you something. There is no safe space. In the jungle, there are many animals. The moment that it will become a place that will be safe for you to kiss in a shopping mall, then your elderly homophobic guy who comes there to buy his bread, it will stop being a safe space for that guy. The world is not safe, and it's not supposed to be safe, and it's not supposed to be perfect. And today, all the people who are fighting each other, they're fighting it to achieve some kind of perfection, which is also comes from the word of optimization, instead of basically living the life and not trying to control them in such an overt and weird manner. It's really like the fact that that the entire world has an opinion and blocks and I don't know attacks people because Donald Trump asked to cancel a red card for I don't know a team. So
Belgium. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm saying, regardless of your opinions about soccer or about Trump, then I'm saying, why is the entire world wasting its time talking about somebody who did something that probably wasn't right, but who really cares? It's not as if like he dropped a bomb on Hiroshima for nostalgia's sake. The guy, what did he do? Like, it's boring, but we would always find this kind of thing to deal with, and that would be actually kind of, instead of relying on our curiosities, on our anxieties, on our problem, we would just say, oh, like, I mean, people speak to me about global warming. I say to them, your kid is using drugs, your kid will be gone long before the planet will be gone. Like, you can't always find something to be hysterical about instead of living your own life.
All very true. Let's pivot from tech and those big themes for just a moment. So you are a uniquely adored Israeli author. I can't tell you how many people I know with zero personal connection to Israel that were excited to be here. They better be on this Zoom, by the way. That I was meeting you. They were just so excited. And your fiction is distinctly Israeli, but readers all over the world see themselves in it. So what do you think it is about the Israeli experience that you think travels so well?
Well, when I published my first collection of short stories, I think I was 23 years old, and I said something that annoyed uh, everybody. And I said, I'm not an Israeli writer, I'm a Jewish writer in exile in the land of Israel. And what I was really trying to say is that I'm a child of two Holocaust survivors. My parents came from Poland and from Belarus. They were very, very dominant in my life. And the first thing that they told me is Holocaust survivors. They say every country has a flag, an ideology, and its ways. So doubt everything that is served to you, because we've been in countries that had wonderful anthems and stuff. Always be critical. And I think that when I think about diaspora Jews and the wonderful contributions that they gave to the world, it really came from the fact that they always needed two tiers thinking. You know, if you're an American Jew and you go and you see Americans doing something crazy, you can say those Americans are crazy, and you can say it as a Jew. And if you go to your synagogue and you see everybody speaking on their cell phone, you could say those Jews are crazy, and you can say it as an American. So this ability to kind of switch between those identity, it makes you reflexive for your own life, and it also kind of helps you kind of jump from one system to another. If you think about Jewish geniuses like like Einstein or Marx or Freud, they always worked inside a discipline. Like Einstein knew Newtonian physics, but he could jump out and say, those Newtonian physics, they're crazy, and make relativity theory. So I'm saying I always felt that, that I admired the diaspora Jews for so many things that Israel had lacked. In the diaspora, the Jewish leader wasn't a general. It was a spiritual leader. It was a rabbi, and the Jewish humor is has its source and power from the fact that Jews were weak in the diaspora and they compensated through humor, while Israeli humor is just a fade copy of Saturday Night Live. So I'm saying that I see myself much more in the sphere of Isaac Babel or Kafka than in the sphere of writers like Yoshua or Oz that I really adore, but I don't think that they see the world the same way that I did as son of immigrants.
That's so interesting. I mean, are there any ideas or concepts that you feel you've covered that have or that remain as part of your work and part of the way you express yourself that remain specifically Israeli, even when they're translated into dozens of languages? It's sort of the reverse question.
Yeah, well, when my first collection of story came out in translation, it was in Germany, and the first review made a list of all the fantastic elements in my stories. That there was a person with wings, there were little midgets running around, and in the list, suddenly it says civilians go around the street carrying pistols on their bodies. People stop every full hour to listen to the news. Now, this is hyper realistic. This is Israel. But for somebody who looks from the outside, then to differentiate something that is grotesque in my mind and something that is grotesque in reality, it's very, very difficult to tell them apart.
Yeah. And I would say, I mean, you and I were chatting before we welcomed everybody into the Zoom about sort of the extension of compassion that somewhat exists on a psychological level between between the diaspora Jews and Israeli Jews right now in this moment. It feels like in some ways you've been ahead of the curve with that kind of understanding, and it's how understandable it is. Well, whatever. No one wants to hear my story. Okay. Anyway, you have also said.
I want to hear your story.
Okay. Well, my story is just that I've been to Israel twice, when I was 17 and then this last February. And the first time as a 17-year-old American Jew, I get there and there was a palpable, understandable hostility and resentment from my peers because they were gorgeous, bronzy soldier, 17-year-olds who were getting ready to fight for life and death. And I was, watching Mel Brooks and eating. So, there was.
I think that these are the two things worth living in this world, eating and watching Mel Brooks, I think.
Well, the 17-year-olds at the time did not think that. My peers in the army were a little bit like, you're ridiculous. And I couldn't help but agree and feel a little bit ashamed, which, this time as an adult and being in Israel and finding this true, there was so much more connection and understanding for the challenges and the unique challenges that both sets of Jews face, whether they are Israeli Jews or diaspora Jews, particularly in this moment in the world. And I guess we have technology to thank for both the escalation and the connection.
So I'm going to say something maybe a little bit provocative, and you forgive me for that, but I really think that in a sense, I spend a lot of my time in the US working on this program. So many of my closest friends are American Jews, and many of my closest friends are Israelis. And I think that, that sometimes the connection between the Israel and the diaspora Jews is kind of like a Gordic knot that in a sense has to be severed because I tell you what I think. I think that, with the Gaza war, there was rise of anti-Semitism all across the world. Now, the idea is that the fact that regardless of speaking about the war, the fact that people saw connection between Jews and Israelis is anti-Semitic in nature. Basically saying, okay, you put a Jew give him a rifle, he kill people, we should deal with those people. But I'm saying that the need to keep this connection is not only coming from the anti-Semitic side, it's also coming from the Israeli government and from the Israeli leadership. Basically, when every accusation is seen as anti-Semitic, then when something anti-Semitic happens, nobody listens to you anymore. And I really, really think that, that the diaspora Jews can be very supportive of Israel, but this doesn't mean to be unconditionally supportive. I as somebody who comes many times to the US, I met many times this kind of a guilt complex among American Jews that say, how can I criticize anything? How can I say anything when I wasn't in the army? I wasn't shot, I didn't lose my friend. And I always say that, that the more I love a person, the more I'm involved in their lives, I mean, if I would see you now shooting heroin, I would say, go, Jamie, go. But if my best friend would do that, I will have a conversation with him, because I know him since he was 5, and I care for him. So
I mean, I thought we were a little closer than that, but that's
no. I was just trying to.
Let's forget it. I forget it. I only want to move forward because I know we don't have a tremendous amount of time, and there are two things that I really do want to get to. You have said that only 2 of the stories in autocorrect were written after October 7th, Gondola and Intention. Obviously, the subject matter in Intention is unique to October 7th, but Gondola is about Tinder. Do you feel that your storytelling changed after, and if so, how?
Yeah, so I can say, I do a spoiler on the story just to explain its connection to the 7th of October. It's really a story about a woman that meets on Tinder a married man. They fall in love, but he refuses to leave his wife. And then one day she discovers that he's not married, that he lied, that he's married. He just wants to keep some space of his life for his own. So I think, and in the end of the story, the girl agrees to that. She says, "Don't leave your wife, but let's have a child." And basically, she lives under this kind of lie, that she's his lover and that he has a wife. For me, I think it was a story about compromise, about the importance of basically finding what you need to survive, grabbing whatever love you have, taking whatever you can. And this was a very kind of a humbling post 7th of October feeling. But I can say in general about storytelling that, let's say 10 years ago, if you would ask me, what's your fantasy? I would say, I want to write the best story in the world and go on top of the Empire State Building and throw it at people and that everybody would read it. And, so it would be like kind of a scientist saying, I want to cure cancer. But when 7th of October happened, I became from a scientist, immediately I became a paramedic because I didn't want to write the best story in the world and I didn't want to be read by millions, but I would want to talk to a child and tell him a story that would make him forget for 5 minutes that his father was murdered. I would send the story I wrote to somebody that her boyfriend was kidnapped, so there was something it was really like a bandaging with stories. I had 2 WhatsApp groups in which I would send every weekend a story for Shabbat. And I had 2 because one of them was with religious people, so I couldn't have sex in it. And one was the secular one, so I could have sex in it. And basically for 4 months, I would sit down and I say, I want to write something because all the people in this group, they've been through a lot and I can't bake them a cake. So the least I can do is make a story for them, not for the greatness of the Jewish nation, but for that person who's sitting in front of you. And I think that this is also what pushed me to start this program in the JTS, because I feel that the world right now needs storytellers. It needs people that will be able to tell their own stories and to help the people around them tell their story, because the stories outside are really, really bad.
Did your Substack grow out of these WhatsApps? Because I also want to talk about your Substack, Alphabet Soup, which people can subscribe to. Is that, how new is the Substack? And can you?
This is kind of 5 years ago, and
Oh, okay.
basically, I had this thing. I was in my bed, and I said to myself, if I'm going to write a story tomorrow, and I publish a book every 7 years. 7 years from now, when I publish this story, how would the world look like? And then I said, 7 years is too long. And the next week, I started this newsletter. And the nice thing for me about it, it's that basically every week I write something. It could be a story, it could be an op-ed, but I have to write something. And to be honest, when you become kind of an established writer in a world that doesn't really cares that much about writing, then basically you can easily, there's nobody out there shouting, hey, give me a story. But the moment that you have a newsletter and you publish it, there are those people that are saying, hey, we want to read another one. And it instantly becomes a community. And for me today, in a world where magazines and every place you go around, it's all political and ideologically tainted, then the idea that I can have this big room where people would come every week and I'll tell them a story and they say, hey, Etgar, this one sucks. Last week was really good, then give me tips, give me ideas. It's very humanizing. And again, this is how technology can work for us.
Well, I was going to say, will this prevent you from putting out books because you are now operating on such a regular technological level?
No. I actually think that it's two different kinds of speeches. It's a little bit like, for me, Substack is like speaking on the phone. And the book is like making love to you. It's not the same.
I love that. That's amazing. Somebody write that down, please.
And stop stop that heroin. I really care. Stop using heroin.
Thank you. I was wondering when that was going to come up again.
Okay.
Okay, but that also speaks to the translation process, which is interesting because that's very much what the institute that's having us here today does. The process of translate, you are so precise in your language in all of your work. So, and also I want to ask about translation both in the literature and on the Substack, because it's being turned around very quickly. How do translations of your work maintain the nuance of your original Hebrew?
So really, I think that, that in a sense, translators are co-writers. It's really like I always say, I can write a funny story, but if my translator doesn't get the joke, no reader is gonna ever get that joke. So I can tell you that my late mother, she was a Holocaust survivor from Poland. She kept insisting that my Polish translations were better than the Hebrew original. And I could understand that because actually I'm my Polish translator. She's an amazing writer on her own, and maybe can kind of carrying the language. She took it to another place. Now I must say that the Substack is a very, very unique thing because everything there is very quick, and usually when you write, you have a lot of time. So I work with Jessica Cohen, who's my translator, and she's really one of the most amazing translator and people in the world. And when I worked with her, I said to her, I want you to work with me, not only because you're the best translator I know, but because you're going to be the only person who's going to see the story before it gets published. So you have to edit it too. Like I'm saying, if I send you a story and you say, Edgar, that's silly, you can't publish it, or something doesn't work in the end, or how about we do that? And there is something about the manner in which we work it's kind of like, it's not as if like Jessica disrespect my ownership of the work, but it's really like it's like, I don't know, it's like when you go to a colonoscopy. Yeah.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yes, I'm following.
Yeah. So I'm saying, so this idea that there is a camera inside you is something that you're not used to, and it's very, very unique. So I'm saying what I'm doing with Jessica, it's a colonoscopy. It's not a normal work of translation. Nope. It's something that happens rarely, and we should keep it.
I think it's very important because, even I sat and considered, like, I know that when I need a few phrases in Spanish, I just load it into AI and I get my phrases in Spanish. But the difference, what you're explaining to me, is such an important process to sit with your translator and really hear how that work reflects on them, that they might be able to then put it in the language that we're translating it to. It's just a beautiful collaboration and an arduous process. So I think it's something people don't think about as needing funding, but it does, and we will get to that.
But I want to say something about using AI for translation.
Yeah.
And so I'm saying it's very much like what I said about navigating with a navigation app, because
yes,
because what I think is that let's say when you want to translate something or you want to understand it, it's all about a lot of nuances in it. And the moment that you do this kind of Google Translate, you kind of flatten it. It's a little bit like when people take your photo on the phone, or when they take it with a good lens. So I'm saying, for example, if somebody sends me an email and I say, does this guy want to send me a pizza or to kill me? I don't speak Georgian. Then I use Google Translate, But if somebody says something that I think that has any kinds of nuances, I would like a human being to kind of interpret it to me.
It's deceptive how good at mimicking emotion and meaning AI is getting, but there are certain things I have to, as a comedian, and you as an author, I hope we have to believe it will never get good enough.
I don't think so. I think, first of all, I can tell you from the scientific side, it's gonna get good enough and it's gonna get better, but it doesn't matter. It's like for example, when there will be autonomous cars, you could still go for a round in your yard, and you could take
Right.
me with you, you know. So I'm saying the idea is that we used to think, we were brought up to say we must bring something that would support the word so it won't fall on our head. And this was our upbringing, but this is not true anymore. And for me, I don't mind, you know, the AI can write brilliant stories and read them to itself as much as it wants. But I'm saying, but when I come to it, I don't care who writes the best story. I want to write a story because I enjoy it, and I want you to read
But
it because you're my
we also
friend.
have to, but going back to what you said at the beginning of this conversation, it is an intention and a choice. We must make choices, and we're going to have to keep making them, I think, harder and harder as we choose to listen and read the human and have the human experience, whether it's the navigation or otherwise. I could talk to you for 25 more minutes.
Yeah.
Listen to me. We have some questions from our audience that I really feel I want to get to because
Yes, please.
we owe them this. And we've picked a couple of them. So this is from Lucy Abrahams. And her question is, do you believe international audiences are no longer interested in Israeli literature or that publishers are gatekeeping? And most importantly, how can readers help?
Yeah, so I think that around the world, you know, I can tell you there were places that I was canceled, places that they asked me to push the publishing of my books, places where I couldn't come to a festival or an event. But I really want to say that my feeling about this, it's not that it's kind of a general public issue. It's kind of a very stressed, the stressed people who are in the middle. You know, it's really like, let's say, it's not that the audience would have a problem, but festival organizers would have a problem inviting Israel. And I want to tell you a true story that had happened to me. Okay, I was supposed to have an event with a famous author, and which I know, you know, we're personal connection. We're not friends, but I know and I super appreciate. And that person said to me, "I want to cancel the event." It was just when the war started, and it was overseas. And I said, "Why?" And that person said, "Because I know that when we sit on stage, everything we're going to say will be very, very human, and we'll communicate that to each other and to the audience in the hall. But all the people outside the hall wouldn't know anything about what happened. They would just know that I sat with the Israeli. They don't know your opinions. They don't know what you're saying. They could say that you said this, you could say that. And I'm a writer. I write books. I don't need this crap. And I can say that really, that I wouldn't say that I would say this is annoying and stuff, but I totally understood that situation. And I think that, you know, we know it also from the Russian-Ukrainian conflict, where I remember I came to a conference to support the Ukrainian people, and the person driving me from the Culture Institute, he told me proudly that because of the Russian invasion to Ukraine, they canceled a big conference, 100 years for Dostoevsky. And I said to them, was Dostoevsky a Putin fan? And he said, it doesn't matter, you know. So this kind of shallowness usually comes from the people that are in the junction. They're bureaucrats. They don't want to get fired. I really want to say that Israelis suffer from it a lot, but you wouldn't want to be an American Palestinian writer these days because nobody wants them either. The idea is that everybody just wants to be nice. You know, it's really like, I mean, let's say if you put a post that would say anything about Israel, then people would fight on your Instagram or Facebook. If you put a post and say, guess what? It's Red-Headed People Day, then everybody would give you a like, you know? So this is
You're
what makes
saying
this word.
it's ultimately very fickle, and the way we can help is to keep on supporting and loving what
But
our authors do.
what I'm saying is that what I think is really important to understand that, you know, I've been to the States and I spoke, you know, I have students coming to study in my class and saying, somebody yelled at me, go back to Brooklyn, you know, because it is not ultra-Orthodox or something, or we don't need you here, or all these things. So So I understand how strongly it is being felt. But what I want to say is that there's something very distorting about it, because it's echoed by social media, and it's echoed by television, and it's echoed by anyone. But while in real life, most of the people, I wouldn't even say that they love you because you're Jewish. They really don't care.
Yeah.
They really don't care. I could sit in Israel and watch the news, and for 1 minute they would talk about 12 soldiers that died, and after that they would talk about a Jewish woman in Venice, that somebody unleashed a dog at her for being a Jew, but it's unconfirmed. But it's in prime time that maybe somebody's dog barked on a woman, and say people are dying, and you talk about that. So I'm saying we also sometimes cultivate this emotion.
Yes. I think that is continuing to be amplified by our phones. So another question from our audience. This is from Alberta Nassi. I hope I'm pronouncing.
Alberta, she's
You
in
know
our
Alberta.
program. She's in our program. She's an amazing writer.
Excellent. Excellent. And wait, did you mention that your program is in Philadelphia, not New York? Did I get it
No,
wrong?
no, it's in New York.
It
It's in
is
the
in New
Jewish,
York. Okay.
yeah, just Upper West Side, the promised
Upper
land
West Side.
from the
Okay,
Bible.
very good. Well, so Alberta wants to speak specifically to your story Gravity, which is one of the stories in autocorrect, and how it captures something rarely acknowledged about suicide. And she wants you to please say more about the awareness that you brought to this story, Jem. So what sort of prompted the suicide storyline? And
So basically, it's a story about a newlywed couple that bought an apartment that they have a lot of loans on it, and in the morning, the wife goes to bring both of them coffee, and one of the neighbor commits suicide and basically jumps from the window and falls right next to her. And the entire story is basically kind of positioning yourself towards this, because there is a big story of a depressed woman that killed herself, and there is a very subjective, selfish story of somebody that got herself a trauma because somebody jumped on her head. Like, you could cut your wrists in the bus. People pay money. It's a new, so this kind of a tension between a petty selfishness, and the right thing was the engine of it. And it all came. I was waiting in line. I think it was in the bank, and I heard two people speaking to each other, and they were referring to a suicide, to a suicide, and the woman said, "Why couldn't you go to some shopping mall and jump? It affects the price of all the apartments in the building. Her jumping." Now that you jumped, our apartments are worthless. So she said, "Why couldn't you do the right thing? Go to a shopping mall and jump." So there was something in this kind of a. It didn't even feel evil. It just felt so unaware and so truthful. If somebody would have jumped on me, I would rather that they go to some shopping mall too.
amazing. And where you can get your inspiration from is an important reminder that inspiration can come from anywhere. I have 10 more questions, but the one that I want to ask, the last question that I will ask is, who or what are your biggest American and Israeli literary influences and or recommendations for us, for readers?
Or when it comes for writers, filmmakers, I think that there's so many of them. But
I know.
I think that the writer who had influenced me the most was Kafka, and I
Ah,
think it was Kafka basically because I remember when I first read him, I said he doesn't know how to write, and he seems to be so kind of a hysterical and inconfident, and I could identify with it because I said, okay, I also don't know how to write, and I'm hysterical and inconfident. So if this guy can do it, I can do it too. And this kind of idea of basically falling into a story without even knowing what's going to be there. So I think he was a great influence. Isaac Babel short stories, it influenced me a lot. When it comes to American writing, I think Kurt Vonnegut was the
ah,
greatest influence on me. But I love Carver and Cheever, and there are many, many writers that I love. But I think that, you know, the thing about those writers that I kind of stay stuck in my mind, they don't have to do anything that is in my realm, but it's just this kind of idea that there is this kind of confined word of writing, and you have somebody that goes through the ceiling or through the floor or through one of the walls and kind of broadens this space. And there are many writers that in different ways can kind of give you that, and it always kind of makes you want to sit and write something new.
And who, any other Israeli authors,
Yeah,
contemporary or otherwise, that you would like to recommend for us?
yeah, Orly Kastelblum is an amazing writer. She writes both short fiction. I would recommend her novel Dolly City. Yoel Hoffman, anything that, you know, Book of Joseph or anything that he had written from the more contemporary writers. You have Noah Yedlin, you have Maya Arad. I don't, I'm trying to think, Ido Geffen. There are many great young writers, and they're translated to English. You know, you can read them.
Great. I mean, here are some of the things we're not going to get to. The Keret House in Poland, which everyone has to Google. Keret House in Poland, because it's fascinating art installation inspired, named for Etgar, in the place where you lived.
And
You
no,
lived there?
it's actually it's the place where my mother would smuggle bread to the ghetto.
Oh my God. Just Google Carrot House. And the fact that your name in English means challenge, which Etgar means challenge in
Yeah.
English. That's just fate, I think.
You know that
Um,
Keret means big city, so my name is Urban Challenge. I could be a pair of Nike sneakers, you know, with a name like that.
I immediately imagine you in the backseat of a taxi. This is your urban challenge is to get urban dwellers to speak to you. And before I thank Etgar Keret and all of you for joining us today, I just want to say a few more things quickly. Book Club is taking a summer vacation. We'll be back in the fall. And second, we need your help. Hebrew literature stands at a very critical juncture. It needs immediate practical support to maintain its global presence. You can support us to help publish a Hebrew book internationally. We would greatly appreciate your donation. Any amount makes a difference. I'm going to ask us to switch the screen. I'll have Etgar wave goodbye. But as we thank him in a second, I'm going to give him a big thank you. But we will switch the screen to a QR code now, and you can get more information and donate to the Hebrew Literature Translation Fund. In the chat, you can also find the link. Every donation makes a difference. Please spread the Hebrew word. Thank you again very much to Etgar Keret. Thank you to the fantastic team at the Israeli Institute for Hebrew Literature working from Israel. Thank you, dear Nister, for hosting us. Special thanks to our producer, Karen Hantman. My name is Jamie Denbo. Thank you all so much. We'll keep the Zoom on so that you can scan the QR code, and I will not say anything cancelable. So don't listen too hard. I don't know, Etgar might. And thank you all so much for joining us. And go read autocorrect and join the Substack.